Kalishaw, Dennis Johnson. Dennis Johnson, there we go. That's a Hall of Fame style on the right side of the paddle there. New first place team in the American League. Oh, yeah. A new mustache atop the strikeout list. And the World Cup starts tonight for the U.S. women's national team. Repeats. Let's go.
Here we go. 13-0 they win tonight.
No team has ever three-peated at the World Cup. It's one of the many plot lines as the U.S. women's national team begins that pursuit tonight in Auckland. USA versus a Vietnam team making their first Cup appearance 4 hours from now. That's 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central. That's what we used to always say, 8 Central. No one ever said 7 Mountain, 6 Pacific. I say it right here. This U.S. roster, familiar faces, of course, and some fresh and new faces. Health always key. Megan Rapinoe, Rose Lavelle will be on minutes restrictions to start this tournament. The team's record over this last year, 11 wins, 3 losses. So, expectations, pressure points, and X factors as the World Cup begins for the national team. Around the horn to Bill Plaschke.
As the only one of these panelists who was there in '99 when Brandy Chastain took off her shirt, I have some expertise in this matter. And the U.S. has lost 4 World Cup games in 8 World Cups, 4 out of 50 games. The 80% winning percentage. They haven't lost a World Cup game since 2011. They should be heavily favored. However, I'm here to tell you they're not going to win this year. It's not happening for the U.S. women's team. They have 14 new players. That's the biggest turnover ever on a women's World Cup team. They're missing their leading scorer. They're missing their player with the most international appearances. They have a coach that blew it in Tokyo. They got a bronze medal in Tokyo. And last fall, they lost to England, Germany, and Spain 3 games in a row. Those are the 3 top contenders. This team is just too young, too much change going on. They're not going to win it.
And there it is, your Jingo preview here from Bill Plaschke. Well, Bill, let me just get back to you for a second, okay? Because you're talking about how the team has looked over the last year and the turnover that they have. But the idea that they've won 9 straight since those 3 losses.
But those were the 3 big games that they had to win. Those are the 3 top teams. And they lost 3 in a row. And, again, the coach, you know, we don't know how he's going to coach in this situation. Too many unknowns here.
Tim Kalishaw, you're known, and we turn to you now.
You know, I think Plaschke's on to something. I mean, he should be. He's been going to these games for 24 years, apparently. I do think we have reached a point where it's no longer the slam dunk. It's no longer USA heavy favorite and huge upset if somebody takes them down. We know that world was going to change over time. We know the U.S. had a huge running start in basketball and soccer thanks to Title IX compared to other countries around the world. And for the last 10 or 20 years, some are starting to gain ground. And as Bill said, the 3 best teams from Europe all beat the USA last year. I think the USA team can overcome that, but that is a boost for those teams if and when they play them in this cup. They're not as strong in goalkeeper as they used to be when they had Hope Solo there forever. I just think there's enough fragility about this team that I'm not saying like Plaschke calling it over, but I'm just saying I think they're beatable. He sounded like he was calling it over. I just think
there has been in the net for World Cup before, too. They're not rough at the goalkeeper position, per se. David Dennis Jr., I turn to you.
Yeah, this is going to be their toughest road, but that's how three-peats work. If you look at any three-peat in any sport in history, the 3rd time is always the hardest road to get there. Yes, they're younger. They only have 9 players from when they last won the World Cup. But look at these young players they have. Sophia Smith, Naomi Gurman. These are studs at these positions. No, they're not as dominant, but they have not trailed in the World Cup since 2011. They've outscored their opponents by 100 goals throughout this entire run. They're 18-1-1 in their group alone. This is still the cream of the crop. This is the team to beat. Yes, the margin of error is going to be a little bit lower, but they are going to win.
And Martenzie Johnson.
Yeah, I'm hearing what everyone's saying, but I just got to roll with USA. Where's the team spirit in all of this? I believe that we're the best at everything. We're the best in soccer. We're the best in tennis. We're the best in everything. So we got to root for this team. Like we all said, they've won 2 in a row. Only 4 teams, men and women, have ever done that. So they're already great in that regard. They're going for number 3. No team has ever done that before. Now, granted, half the team, or actually more than half the team, is new to the World Cup. But that being said, these new players are not scrubs. David just mentioned all these players. They're rookies of the year. They're defensive players of the year. They're all-stars. They're all of the above. Now, again, they don't have that necessary experience, but they still have 2 players in particular, one being Megan Rapinoe, who is coming off the bench, so she's not going to be as useful as she used to, at least not on the field, but in a leadership capacity. And then they have someone called Alex Morgan. And we had a story on ESPN.com from John Arnold the other day, and this woman is treated like Debo by the rest of the soccer community because she can score at will whenever she wants to. So until I see something from England, Australia, the Netherlands, who also have injuries and are missing people as well, I'm going Team USA.
Lashka, I'll let you back in.
Yeah, Martinez, it's not like we're not cheering for USA. I'm definitely cheering for USA. This is a patriotic thing.
You're saying there's a difference between expectation because of sustained success and reality right now.
The reality, I'm
versus
cheering
the
for, but the reality
where,
is,
hey, the playing field has gotten a lot closer to even. But you're talking about how there's, so much turnover with the team. Bring in Trinity Rodman, is that a bad thing? One of the great Alyssa Thompson, one of the great young faces. So you do have a mix of established players and newer players, Plashke.
yes, you have a mix, but again, the veterans, their leading scorer, Mallory Swanson's not there. Becky Sauerbrun's not there. The heart of this team is not there.
Julie Ertz now back to playing after 20 months away after the birth of a child. Sophia Smith, an emerging talent. This is one of the great things about the World Cup. You learn and meet new stars, and they knock it out of the park in some ways, and that's maybe what this team needs more than they have in the past, someone to really step up. We'll take a pause on this. USA, Vietnam tonight in about 4 hours. Talk baseball now. Orioles 4, Rays 3. Baltimore turning the 10th inning, game-ending double play, and that is how first place turns in the American League East for the first time all year. Tampa had that perfect start and the big lead. They're under 500 over their last 61 games. Repeat, 30-31 over the last 2 months. And now these Orioles, so young and clutch. You got to look at a couple during All-Star weekend in the game, leading the world in comeback wins. 3 more games in Tampa this weekend, Tim. Is this more about Baltimore or Tampa right now, and who you got in first for the long term?
It's got to be first. It's got to be a little bit about Tampa Bay because they just got to Baltimore, having been swept here in Arlington by the Rangers. Not to make this about the Rangers.
It sounds like you're making this about the Rangers. Okay.
Second best record in the American League behind the Orioles.
You're not wrong.
Very close. Let's not forget what they're doing. But the Rays, since those days of being 30-9, I mean, they've been a sub-500 team since then for a long time. They took off at the beginning of the year. Guys like Josh Lowe, Yandy Diaz, some good hitters, but they were leading the league in slugging percentage. That was going to come down at some point. So that has come back to reality. The Orioles are just fun. They got so many rookies and young guys from Rutschman to Westberg, Colton Cowser. They could call up more. Heston Kjerstad was the number 2 overall pick from Arkansas a few years ago. He's hitting in the minors. He may join the fun.
Listen to Tim.
I don't know if they have the pitching. But I think Toronto will get in the mix. I don't think Tampa Bay is going to hang in there.
Almost sound like you were on the Orioles beat report there with all that Baltimore knowledge you were dropping. David Dennis Jr. on this particular Tampa-Baltimore head-to-head. Who you got?
I'm going with Baltimore. Tampa is a dumpster fire after starting 30-9 this season. As you mentioned, at 30-31 since below 500, which would put them at the bottom of their division. They have the worst tie for the worst record in this month. They look like they are struggling. This could be that series that sort of puts them even further on that downward spiral. But I want to also talk about Baltimore and what they've done. This is the culmination of that rebuild since they traded Machado a few years ago. And even though, I don't think that they're going to win the World Series necessarily this year, their, average age on that roster is 28. And they have this farm system of pitchers that are coming up, that this can be, something that leads to an upturn for the next few years. Now, if they want to try to push the button for this year, They do have those farm players. There's this guy in California who may be on a rental. They can try to, get Ohtani over there. Then maybe we can talk this
There
year.
we
I'm
go.
not sure if they're
I
gonna do
was
that, but
waiting
that is
for
on the
somebody
table.
to go. I was thinking it might be, from the starting pitcher position, but of course, Ohtani's from the starting pitcher position as well. So if you're Baltimore, you'd make a move at the deadline to try to win right now, even with a team that is so young and fun and full of potential.
Absolutely. It is Ohtani. Like there is no price that is too big for this guy. And Baltimore has enough young players in that farm system that they can get rid of some of them and still have a future to build around.
Hortensia Johnson.
Yeah, I'm not going to be the one to argue against your team trading for Shohei Ohtani, but I will say the Baltimore Orioles are a better team than the Los Angeles Angels, so maybe just keep intact what you have here. They won 10 of 12. Their bullpen is one of the best in the majors, highlighted by Felix Bautista, who last night was just slinging it at the end. .96 ERA with 91 strikeouts. You could talk about the Rays and their slide, but I think the more important story is what's up and coming for the Orioles. We saw what they were as recently as, 3 years ago? All those losses, it's a cliche in sports that you say you have to lose before you win. All these losses, I have to say, it's time for them to win, so I got Baltimore over Tampa here.
Did you just say in order to win games, you have to lose games? This is like a reverse J.A.
You gotta learn to lose to win.
You're blowing my
talk about
mind
the
here.
Milwaukee Bucks, they had to lose twice to win, Tony.
If I mute Adonde for saying that, that means I have to reward you for saying the opposite. Bill Plaschke, go ahead.
Now, so if you did mute Kalishaw for talking about the Rangers, I can talk about the Dodgers, who are going to beat the Rangers in a 3-game series this weekend in Texas with Kalishaw watching. I'm calling it right now, Tim. That series is over. Dodgers win the series this weekend.
Okay, go ahead.
As far as the Orioles are concerned, they're a really fun young team, but the starting pitching ranks 18th in baseball. They need a starting pitcher, 4.57 ERA. I see him going up north and getting Scherzer or Verlander. Those are, they need somebody like that. I think Ohtani's going to be too much for them. But I think they can get a good veteran starting pitcher. They have to consider they're a great young team. They take the extra base. They play great defense. They're well managed. They're exciting. They're inspiring. But they need starting pitching.
When they started this rebuild, they really bottomed out payroll-wise, in addition to a lot of other things. You're talking about Scherzer and Verlander. They're both due $43 million next year.
$40 million.
So it becomes,
I know.
Well, how much would the Mets be willing to pay to part with one of those guys if the Mets sell? That's the type of move that shows that you want to win right now. You think it's available to you right now. And why wouldn't you think that if you're knocking out, the American League East right now after being down by 10 games at one point? Now they're already in first. It's still not even August. Love them O's in different area codes. Buy or sell next. There is no positivity like day one positivity. Jets, day one of training camp. And here we go. The stories are already out. Aaron Rodgers is different. Alan Lazard says he's reaching new players and young players with open arms. And Rodgers is saying this is not just a one-year thing. It's different. Quote, it's not just a one-year thing. Quote, it's different. And quote, I feel like I've grown a lot over the years. I would say maybe earlier in my career I was a little more easily angered, feeling like I'm a little less triggered as I get older. Bill Plaschke, buy or sell a new Aaron Rodgers with the Jets?
I'm buying this. I can't buy it enough, and I know it's going to sound crazy, but I remember hearing the same sorts of things from Peyton Manning when he went to Denver and from Tom Brady when he went to Tampa.
Okay.
They left their old went to new environments, new places. They became embraceable. They became accessible. They became like coaches. This feels like the same
So
thing.
you think a new job and you have a fresh look at the world. How many new jobs have you had, Bill Plaschke? You've been with the LA Times for
37 years.
I'm giving you points for that. That's great consistency. Tim Kalishaw.
Yeah, I've only been at the Morning News 34 years. So
Good
I can't
for
relate
you
to
guys.
Plaschke.
Yeah.
I would say this. I agree with everything Plaschke said. I hate to even start there, but I fall for this stuff sometimes. But I don't think it's really falling for it. The Jets were 7-4 last year before it fell apart. A quarterback would have made a little difference down the stretch. They had the offensive rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year. The players are there. This is a new Rodgers. I like it.
A new Rodgers, David Dennis Jr.?
I just want to say for the record, I've been alive as a human for 37 years. So shout out to you guys for keeping jobs for as long as I've been around. But the reason that Bill, this sounds familiar, this sounds like what other quarterbacks have said to Bill, because this is what everybody says. It's the first day of training camp. Oh, everything is so positive. It's so great. I love my new team. This is what you say. Aaron Rodgers is going to be the same curmudgeon-y conspiracy theorist. Aaron Rodgers is going to throw 4,000 yards just like he does every other year, no matter what he says in the first day of the season.
Johnson.
I've been at ESPN for 9 years, which should count as much as these dudes, because this is on ESPN right now, so I feel like I should get like triple or quadruple points, Tony. However you want to do it. But I want to buy this from Aaron Rodgers. Who among us, maybe not Tim, maybe not Bill, who among us hasn't hated their job, got their new job, and just loved it way more and had a new lease on life?
Okay.
And that's possibly happened with Aaron Rodgers, and he's going to need that new lease on life. He's going to need that patience with the new players, because this team hasn't made the playoffs in 12 years. Even the Browns have done that.
Fire Sale 2, another story from SEC Media Day. Yesterday, we had Alabama needing some yummy rat poison. Today, Lane Kiffin ripping NIL.
And I'm not saying I was the only one saying, I'm like, whoa, this is a disaster coming because you just legalized cheating. And you just told donors they can pay the players. It's really for your name, image, likeness, for your marketing. Again, that's not what happened. That's not what's happening. They're getting paid to go to school, so it's paid for play.
Tim Kalishaw, buy or sell Kiffin there?
I'm riding shotgun with Lane Kiffin, which looks like it might be a lot of fun, by the way. I am buying everything he's throwing out there, and he didn't say it's the end of the world, and he acknowledged he's getting players. But this is not the idea of, hey, if you're successful in what you do in college, you should get paid for it. These are high school kids, some of them getting six-figure deals because they're going to a particular school, because those schools and those boosters have the money to throw at them.
Okay, so
legalized cheating.
So you do believe it's legalized cheating? Because once again,
absolutely. I mean,
in theory, it was about you're a great player. Your jersey's going to be sold. You're going to get rewarded for that because people are buying your jersey.
Yeah.
Now it's different in practice in that you're just getting money to commit to the school. Okay.
Absolutely.
David Dennis Jr., how do you hear it?
Well, first shout out to Lane Kiffin for doing a press conference in the middle of filming season 3 of White Lotus. Good for him. But to quote Big Boy from ATL, I know that's not who I think it is. Good message, wrong person. Lane Kiffin is describing a world where athletes get to act like Lane Kiffin. This guy's had 6 different jobs in 16 years, and he's the one that gets to move around however he feels like it. And last year, he was negotiating for a job at a different school while he was ending this season with this other team. So this is Lane Kiffin being the wrong messenger, telling a story that a lot of people may agree with.
Martendi Johnson.
He might be the wrong messenger, David, but I'm not killing the messenger on this. He is right. The professionalization of sports, which might be the problem of coaches like him getting $7 million a year, it's bad for sports. There's no rivalries, really. I can't tell you what quarterback is on what team because he transferred 2 times before he got to his last stop. I want better for college football, and all this money isn't making it any better.
And Bill Plaschke.
Martins, I don't agree with you. It's great for sports. College football's never been bigger. It's never been more interesting. There's more parity. TCU gets in the final game. It's tremendous for sports. It is pay for play. And yeah, Lane Kiffin's not the one to be talking about it. The Grove Collective pays 165 Ole Miss athletes, including Lane Kiffin.
Bill, you celebrated TCU getting into the title game, and Tim, you laughed. What were you
Oh, here you're going to say it.
Well, I mean, and I like Sonny Dice and the Frogs. Getting into that game wasn't great.
No, it
at that
wasn't.
moment.
If we remember the last final score of that game. Yes, Bill Plaschke.
65.
Yeah, you may be making a great
come
argument.
on.
You
It
used
was-
the
but
wrong
they were
example.
there.
You used the wrong
They were
example
there.
to make the great argument. That's how Kalishaw passes Plaschke.
How did I lose this?
Tim, David, showdown next.
Did you?
Washington football. Part owner Magic Johnson. Yes, Magic Johnson is part of Josh Harris's ownership group. On the Today Show today, indicating that everything is on the table when he said, quote, everything is on the table, end quote, about a potential team name change. A rebrand. Tim, this would be a rebrand. Are you on board with it?
I am all for this, Tony. New name, new team colors, and most important to every fan there, a new football stadium. Nobody likes going to that place. Let's get a new facility.
David Dennis Jr.
Do you even actually need a rebrand? Getting rid of Dan Snyder is the rebrand. When Senator Palpatine gets thrown off the bridge, you don't rebrand the Empire gets rebranded automatically.
Well, that is a pretty winnable argument from David Jettis. I was all for a new name like Tim was, and a new, but that's pretty good. We'll move on. British Open, among the highlights so far, Crystal Lamprecht. He was a leader in round one. He's an amateur. Look at his swing. He's 6'8". He has to bend the knee to get through because the tour won't allow a shaft that's long enough for him. Also, Victor Hovland pooped on by a bird in his round. But the news of the day in round two, American Brian Harman had a great day, 10 under, exactly where he wants to be at Royal Liverpool in the lead. Takeaway from the Open, Dave.
I know it's generally too early to say who's going to win, but you can lock it in. Hovland got pooped on by a bird. That is good luck. That is more rare than a hole-in-one. Sorry. This is a guaranteed victory.
Mm-hmm.
I think Fleetwood will still make a run at Harman over the weekend, but my main takeaway is that is a great course for TV. That finish, par fives at 15 and 18, that short par three at 17. It's going to be great.
No, David, you don't have to take back a hole-in-one. It's a hole-in-one for the bird on top of Victor Hovland. All right, you take the FaceTime, GD.
If you've been watching a lot of amateur basketball things on social media, on Instagram, there's a new trend percolating, which is people playing pickup ball in these leagues with 8.5-foot goals. It seems like something for a bunch of losers who can't dunk on regular goals. I'm a loser who can't dunk on regular goals. Sign me up. Let me do this. I will be Wembanyama at the LA Fitness, baby.
I invented this back in '94.
Oh, really?
Tony Bennett, you went from rags to riches. Now rest in peace.